record. I don't know why I said play. All right, welcome back to Vijñapti. I'm joined together by my friend Steven. So Steven and
Hey,
I, funny story, Steven and I were actually supposed to read chapter 5 or chapter 6, but we messed up in
six,
our communication.
six. Yeah, but I read five on accident.
Steven read
Yeah,
chapter 5, I read chapter 6,
yeah,
so we're
yeah,
a little out of sync here today. But that's fine. We're
mm,
we're just gonna keep the show going as usual. We're
yeah,
just gonna be
yeah.
a bit more like conversational this time. And I have chapter 5 here pulled up, and I did read it. Maybe like
Mm,
2 weeks
mm.
ago. I just didn't review it for
Yeah, yeah. It's
this
not.
episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Steven, good to have you back on, man.
yeah, of course. I'm glad to be back on the podcast. Sure, the channel.
Yeah. All right. Well, as the only person who reviewed chapter 5 for this episode, what did you
Yeah,
think about it? Let me read the title actually. It's called uh,
yeah.
chapter 5 is called Mutiny on the Body: The Mystery of the Rebellious Immune System. And I believe this chapter was about autoimmune
Mm,
diseases and kind of like giving some background um, from Gabor
yeah.
Mate's perspective on kind of the underlying causes of autoimmune diseases. So what
Of
were
that.
some of the
Yeah.
things that stood out to you the most from this chapter?
So, Dr. Monte found some cases of people who have autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases. I
Hmm.
think there was a woman called Dr. Miss OK. His name is
Miyok?
OK. Yeah,
Miyok?
Miyok, yeah, Miyok, yeah, Miyok, okay, yeah, Miyok.
I think it's Korean.
Uh, yeah, Miyok, yeah. She had a autoimmune disease that really affected her joints and stuff. She couldn't really move well. Her body was kind of streaking up to a ball and really pain at all times.
Hmm.
But they didn't really know what was wrong with her until they gave her well, they didn't know what was happening with her.
Right.
So she had a self diagnosis herself. She had a self diagnosis herself. She had to really know the doctor said down what she had. So like she had to
Hmm.
kind of like really know what was happening to her herself.
Sure.
But really, Dr. Monte said basically Dr. Monte is saying like we still don't know how these things happen, how these diseases occur, like what starts the disease.
Hmm.
But I think he's going from the angle of like kind of like emotional stress or kind of like mental health or mental well-being and how this can really affect the onset of autoimmune disease in the body. Um, I think they said New York, Mrs. New York, she said that she was never asked about her previous emotional or trauma uh, experiences before at the doctor before. So I
Right.
think Dr. Monte was the first one to ask her. Yeah,
Oh, no, no, no. Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like basically, Dr. Monte was the first one to ask her about her previous emotional and distresses or stressors in life. Instead, I think she was revealed that she was sexually abused by her stepfather or father.
Right.
Forget
Yeah.
either two in childhood.
Hmm.
That basically brought her great distress and stress anxiety and also like emotional distress, which could explain a lot of different stressors can really give you the body could be the stress response can have a give you disease onset of I think she had I forget the exact disease she had, but I know it was an autoimmune disease she had for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and also, Dr. Monte said also that he met with some multiple sclerosis patients, which is also different autoimmune disease in the body. It's basically they all had reports of like trauma or stress or emotional like not well being emotional well being not being great in all cases of MS. So we linking into like how stress or how like our well being can actually really impact our health um in the context of like I guess like of autoimmune disease in the body. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
no, and it's really interesting because he, in these first few chapters kind of gives a very broad like lay of the lands, like, here's some cases
yeah,
where
yeah,
people have severe abuse in their past, severe trauma, where they have a lot of
yeah, yeah,
stressors in terms of mental health and mental well-being. But then later on, which
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
talk about in the next chapter, he really gets into the specifics
Mm.
of stuff that I'm not qualified to talk about, which is why I'll,
Yeah,
hear it from you.
yeah. Next
Proteins
episode,
and
yeah, next episode we can go with that. Yeah, yeah,
stuff like proteins and
yeah,
kind of like how the like tumors and cancer and stuff like that actually
Yeah.
at
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
um so yeah, no, I think uh yeah, that's like spot on. And I guess I just looked it up right now. She had rheumatoid arthritis or something with her joints or
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the joints. Yeah. Some of the joints are really aching. Really like immune. Well, inflammation in her joints. They make. She
yeah,
was always in pain all the time. So it was really,
scleroderma.
really bad. Bad. Okay.
Scleroderma. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Apparently it's a
I'm not
joint,
sure.
yeah,
Joint
joint
thing. Yeah.
disease or something
Joint
like that.
issues. Yeah. So.
But yeah,
But yeah, I think it's definitely.
mm,
Yeah. It's pretty cool that we know like that we kind of link like stress and kind of like kind of emotional distress to the onset of these different diseases in the body. I guess
yeah,
this case it'd be autoimmune disease in this case, but I think that can be linked to other stuff as well, which is to
yeah,
be inferred, of course, inferred that it does have effects as well. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I worked at direct healthcare clinic for just a very short amount of time. Not enough to long,
Mm-hmm.
put on my resume or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
time that I was there, I was working with a group of community health workers and other social workers, and part of our job was to
Mm-hmm.
identify what we called social determinants of health, and that was basically compiling a
Yeah,
list of like stressors or different factors that would make patients more prone to, disease. So, um,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we weren't, we're not doctors, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
social workers and community
Those
health
programs, yeah,
workers.
yeah,
But we
yeah.
weren't looking at the biological,
Size, like, yeah,
strictly medical
breaking of that,
aspect, but
yeah,
we're looking, hey, what's this person's income? What's this person's, you know, is there domestic violence in the home?
mm-hmm.
Does this person, do they have access to a car? Do they have access to fresh
Yeah,
food? Stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
We
That's
compile
important.
all
Yeah,
that stuff that's not strictly, I guess, biological metrics of health, and we
yeah,
would factor that into, you know, how how is this person doing in terms of their environment? Like how healthy is their
yeah.
environment?
Mental effect. Yeah,
And yeah, it was
yeah.
a very new
That's all play a
program.
factor. Yeah.
It was a very new program
Yes.
that they, really wanted to push, and I thought it was very useful. And the doctors, some of them were very skeptical of it, some of them just didn't even care about it at all. But others saw value in it because they saw, hey, there are connections between this person's income, this person's
Yeah.
mental well-being, this, all that stuff. And then
Yeah.
would kind of try and take over that side and figure out, okay, how can we get this person access to fresh food? How can we,
Yeah.
make sure this person's in a safe environment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
at least from what I had seen, there is a very real, it's not just kind of up in the air, like, oh, and then there's also stress. It's like, to me, at least,
Yes.
and according to
Yeah.
Dr. Mate, like it's a just as much of a
Mm.
factor to consider in terms of how we think about disease as any other factor.
Yeah. It's one of the major factors of stress because I'm not sure if you know about the stress hormone. The stress hormone, basis of hormone that's made by our not the, what glands this gland the adrenal gland is
Hmm.
basically the top of our kidneys.
Hmm.
That does have an effect on our body and also all the tissues and organs. So as we stress, we have more. I guess we cortisol,
Cortisol, yeah.
yeah, cortisol. So more cortisol, you have different effects on the body too. So that can also be like kind of like be kind of affected also by stress, of course. So and that
Yeah.
can also maybe affect on the immune cells too. On the immune cells and make sure they become overactive and they kind of like attack your own cells. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
could be like a maybe like idea like in how that happens. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, quick question. How's
yeah.
this time with the rain? Is it
Oh,
okay?
yeah, I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything.
Okay,
No.
cool.
Yeah.
As the viewers may know, I love camping. I'm out camping right now in California, so That's my mobile setup right here. But yeah, it's raining. But good. I'm
Nice.
glad that the sounds not too bad. Well, cool. Yeah,
All
let's
good.
get
Yep.
into a little bit of that, man. Like kind of some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. So you mentioned cortisol and adrenaline. So from what I know, adrenaline is the hormone that kicks into your body like really quickly
Yeah.
and
So
kind of your
those are that. Yep. You can go. You can go. Yep.
yeah, so adrenaline's kind of like the fast acting like fight or flight, like I'm ready to leave or I'm ready to fight or whatever. And there's other fear
Yeah.
responses too, but
Mm,
cortisol is the longer acting stress hormone, and that's kind
yeah.
of the one that like gets you up in the morning, gets you started with your day,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind
That's
of
cool.
goes
Yeah.
up and it tapers down, but it's um more long term. But
And,
regardless, maybe you could break this down a little bit more, but from my understanding, when your body physiologically is in that fight or flight or just kind of like
mm-hmm.
physiologically
Mm,
stressed state,
yeah.
it can't heal your body. Let's say you're healing from an injury, or let's say you're working out and you're trying to build muscle or something. It can't heal that injury as effectively when there's very high levels of cortisol or very high levels of adrenaline. Is that about right?
Okay. Yeah. 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 So like, I think we have. I think the exact name for. Let me see. Let me see what the exact name for the adrenaline. Adrenaline is basically a different. Adrenaline is basically a different peptide. Let me see. I'll look it up. I forget the exact name.
Yeah,
Adrenaline.
it's
Uh,
different from what I
actual name.
remember.
Actual. Yeah. I think it's norepinephrine. Let's see.
Yeah,
Uh. Okay. Yeah. It's this epinephrine. So this is basically made by the So you have a gland that's basically on your kidneys, kind of on top of your kidneys, called the adrenal gland. So it's like basically
hmm.
we know kidney, we know kidney, so add me kind of on top of the kidney, so like add adrenal gland. So this is a really small gland on top of your kidney that makes all these different types of hormones
Hmm.
um that can basically be released upon stress or different kind of like stimuli or anything that's really stressful or kind of like a fight or flight, kind of like a really stressful or kind of crazy situation.
Hmm. Sure.
But this basically the base increases and goes up and down, puts on stress. Yeah, that constant basically the constant fight or flight response can also like have really a bad effect for your tissues and lungs or not like organs because basically you basically your body's in a constant like shock mode or kind of overworking itself. That also can have due to kind of like wear down your organs over time. So that can have again another bad response to your tissues, and we also have bad response to your immune cells too. I'm not sure if that
Did you
makes your
say
immune
wear down
cells
your
really
organs?
attack your body.
Did you say
I
wear down
think
your
well,
organs?
I think to a certain extent, like it basically overwork your organs a bit, overwork them. I guess it's definitely your.
Okay.
I guess sometimes your heart or your kidneys, if they're constantly working all the time, that can definitely lead to stress and like basically tissue damage also.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh wow.
I, so basically, it's like if it's like basically all the time, like you have like fight all the time. I would say yeah, definitely you see some wear and tear of the tissues, but not
Mhm.
really like not during like a certain episode or not. I don't think that's the case, but
Yeah.
definitely if your body is in constant like fight or flight mode, you definitely have a really be very fatigued too. Fatigue and stuff, fatigue because your body is really using up energy up to be in that fight or flight state, so you can be more fatigued that all the time too. So um, yeah, so that basically those hormones basically are basically our fight or flight response. That basically that being on all the time can definitely have a really bad effect on your health overall. It makes sense.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
totally. And I
Yeah.
think that's actually more common than we would think. We kind of think that like people have to get a diagnosis for them to have anxiety or whatever, but let's take a real world example.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is enacting a very viciously anti-immigrant public policy.
Yep.
If I were an immigrant,
Yep.
I would be chronically stressed out. Like, hey, like,
Yes. Yeah.
am I going to
Yep.
get deported? Am I going to get arrested? And you might not even realize how stressed out you are. But if you think about it, it's like that stress is very real and very palpable. Which is why,
Yeah, yeah. Go, go, yeah.
Gabor Maté, has this very social justice lens. It's not just kind of like, oh, like let's be anti-racist just because we want to be like woke or something like that. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no, there are very real
X,
physiological
yeah. Yep.
ramifications of political
Okay.
policy. And that's kind of a big message he's
Yep.
trying to.
Yes, I think he makes it. It makes it. I think he does a very good point of having that a big point in the book so far because I read chapter 4 and 5, so that's definitely good points to how like basic stress response and how what we go through can have really a big effect on our health. So that definitely a big point that he makes in the book so far. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah, for sure. Um, okay, so we talked a little bit about stress and some of the systems involved, with some of the stress hormones involved. Um,
Yep, yep.
what else was there anything else in the chapter that you thought was interesting or any specific things that you wanted to mention about the chapter?
This one was definitely not very sciencey, as I guess you see in chapter 6. But I think I saw it's very important that with multiple sclerosis, like he said, basically he didn't see no patient didn't have a previous stressful response, stressful, gets trauma like experience before they had the disease. So I
Mm,
think basically is like it's pretty interesting that basically that the doctors only ask about the what really their past about like the past of patients.
hmm
So I think maybe it should be a certain thing that should be maybe more done in the doctor office, or basically why does maybe they should ask patients if they have any stressful like trauma or any previous experience with trauma or stress that can help better diagnose the patient with the disease. But I'm not sure. But he said basically that they never ask about uh, the patients about the previous history with stress or trauma or something like that. So I think that's very important to improve in the medical field for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, and maybe you'll remember this part. So he actually looks at different personality types or different, I guess, types of emotions or traits, and he's able to identify that
Mm.
people who suppress their anger a lot, people who suppress their
Mm.
grief a lot, that these people are actually more likely, I forget which disease it is, sorry. I think it might be MS actually, that there's like a very strong
Okay.
correlation between these personality traits and then people developing
Yep.
I think it is MS.
Mess or
Yeah,
yeah.
MS.
Okay.
They said they're
Okay.
very overly nice, they're very overly polite, and that this like actually has that stress inducing response, which is also interesting. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that happened to you. It can be something that a habit that you have or that
Yeah.
that you kind of stress yourself out.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Like yes, more. Yeah. More. Um, personality was it like personality like what are you doing how are you a person how do you stress yourself out like basically just like basically who you as a person I guess who you as a person I guess that makes sense um but I think definitely like Dr. Monte does a good job of saying like how does our history with stress or any other trauma can actually affect our health so
Hmm.
definitely another point he makes so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. No, yeah, I thought it was a good chapter too. Um, okay. Now now is Vijñapti time. So Stevie, I'm gonna try to expand your consciousness a little bit, all right?
All right, gotcha.
Okay. So you had said something last time, and I think you were saying like you very much are of the opinion that consciousness is limited to neurons. And I'm gonna try to expand your consciousness here a little bit. So hear my argument out, and then I'm curious to
Yeah,
hear what you think, if you agree, if you disagree,
yeah,
if like nah, that
sure,
doesn't
definitely.
work, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
So the way I see it, I don't think that consciousness is that we can attribute it like only to neurons. And here's my reasoning. So if I
Okay.
took a brain or if I took a neuron and I put it like on a table, completely isolated, just in like a petri dish, I would not
Hmm.
feel any remorse just completely like squishing that neuron or that cell or whatever.
Yeah,
because
that's definitely true.
I don't think that neuron is conscious. I think that that neuron is only conscious in relation to other neurons, in relation to the brain as a whole, in the brain's relation to the nervous system
Body.
and the rest of the body, and the body's relationship to the environment. So, from
Yeah,
from that point of view, I would argue that consciousness can't only be understood as being
in the
limited to
brain.
neurons or brains. What do you think? Agree,
Yeah, that
disagree?
makes some basic. Yeah, actually, I agree with that too. Because like, I mean, I guess the brain is a huge role in that, but like, and these other tissues and other body organs to actually have a complete consciousness. That makes sense. Like basically without the body and the environment, there's no consciousness, right? It's saying there's no
Mhm.
consciousness without the rest of the body and the other neurons and other your legs, your arms, your tissues, and then also how we interact with our environment can
Yeah.
also really change your our yeah yeah I think I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely. I think I guess maybe it begins in the neurons, or I'm not sure, and then it really spans out, or where you can't have it without other stuff as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I don't know.
that's
Yeah,
the cool thing about it is like it's so hard to say like where it begins or ends because,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and let's say it does begin in the neurons. We also know that the external environment plays a very huge role on, how
uh,
our brain is formed,
brain.
and
Yeah, yeah,
Gabor
yeah,
Maté does a good job of outlining that. So
yeah,
yeah. Okay. I expanded Steven's consciousness.
yeah. My conscious ascendant for this episode of Vijñapti. Yep.
Yeah, Steven, you don't have to finish your PhD anymore, man. You're like fully enlightened and like
I
you
just drop
understand
out, get
the whole
go get
workings of the mind and the body.
yeah, nice. But yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Definitely, the brain is not only the source of consciousness, basically, it's all kind of intertwined with all our different bodies and all our different environments can reinform our consciousness. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think that's I get that. I get that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's kind of like an ecological view. And then I guess the last thing I have to say is like it kind of reminds me of that video that we watched about like the trees and the fungus and like how they have this like symbiotic
Oh yeah,
relationship.
yeah. The
It's
network.
not,
Yeah, yeah. That was crazy. Yeah, his video for sure.
yeah, we should go over that
Yeah,
maybe next time or some
yeah.
other time. But
A very video. Yeah.
yeah, basically, Steven and I saw this video where trees and fungus like actually have this relationship where they communicate with each other and actually like help to exchange. I mean, it's like a truly symbiotic relationship. They'll exchange like nutrients to each other. They'll communicate with
Uh,
like the rest of the forest, and
mm,
yeah, through like purely biological mechanisms. And
yeah, yeah,
in that
yeah,
way, like, yeah, I think that kind of like an ecological or environmental view, I think seems kind of tenable. What do you think?
yeah. Definitely. Like I guess if you relate like the brain or the human brain or human to like a tree, I mean, we're still definitely like still like technically organisms. So we're definitely not like different like from them. So we just basically have different genes and stuff. So but like
We have the
definitely I
same
think we
DNA.
yeah same DNA, same DNA as similar proteins and stuff. So not that different from the plants that much. So definitely that could be like basically have the same thing used in art as well. Like we use our environment to like basically inform our inner consciousness. So maybe the inner thoughts or
Hmm.
like basically we need our environment to inform ourselves, I guess, or I'm
Yeah,
not sure, or to form like our I'm not sure.
like
Yeah,
kind
to
of like yeah, like existence in a way.
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, how we resist to our environment. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's I think that's a good idea for sure. Yeah.
cool.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, hey man, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else about chapter 5 that you wanted to talk about or kind of
Uh, not right now, but I think definitely looking forward to chapter 6 because it's more like biology and stuff and protein. So
yeah.
definitely looking forward to seeing that. And I probably have definitely I'd like to say about that because That's what I do mostly. So definitely looking forward to that chapter. Yep.
Yeah. I heard protein, so I'm like, all right, this
Yeah.
chapter's for Steven.
Yeah. So definitely we did pretty soon. We do the next episode pretty soon for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, cool. All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's been good having you on,
Yeah.
and we'll see you
Fantastic.
next time.
All right. See you.
All right,
Peace.
see you guys.